Have you ever been to one of those training events where you turn up and you sit down at the table and just as you think you're about to get out your workbook and start staring at a PowerPoint, the facilitator asks you to get out from the desk and they start throwing a ball around the room and playing a game with you. And you think to yourself, what's the point in this? Well, hopefully I can answer that question for you now. Sometimes when we go to training, we are asked to play games and it does feel a bit pointless. And often the reason for it feeling like that is because the facilitator hasn't really thought about how they could use that game to really bring to life the issues and the themes of the training event that you're attending. So when people use games in training, usually in my experience, they're thinking about two reasons. They're thinking about mixing people up. So when they come in the room, it gets them moving, it gets them talking and interacting with other people in the room, and perhaps breaks the ice a little bit. That's a phrase that we hear quite often about games, that icebreakers. And then the other thing is to energise people, is to get people moving and wake them up and get their body working and get them into a different thinking space for the day's work. And they're really good, valid reasons. But I also think there's much more to games than that. So when I use games in workshops, I'm often thinking about what is going to be the experience that those people have whilst playing that game, and how can that experience link to the context of the training that they're attending. So when someone gets up and plays a game, here's a simple game I'll explain to you now. It's called Anyone Who. Everybody is sitting in a circle except one person who's standing in the middle. That one person standing in the middle just has to say something that's true about themselves. It can be anything at all. Anybody that's got shoes on, or anybody that's breathing, anybody that's ever been to France, anything at all, as long as it's true for them. If it's also true for the people sitting around the side, they have to get out of their chair and move to a different chair somewhere else in the circle. And while they're doing that, hopefully the person from the middle will also sit down, and that will leave one person standing in the middle, because there is only enough chairs for all of the people minus one. Okay, so that's basically the game. There's a few rules, but I won't go into those. Now, in that exercise, there's a couple of moments of heat. The biggest moment of heat is that moment when you're standing in the middle and you've got to think of something to say about yourself. And there's another moment of heat when you're searching around the room trying to find an empty chair. And so after we finish playing that exercise, I talk to people about the experience. I say, how did it feel when you were sitting in the middle, and when you were standing in the middle, and what happened when you were standing in the middle? And people often say that they felt panicked and they couldn't think of anything to say. And then I begin to expand on that conversation. So when else in life, maybe in work, do we feel that? Do we feel under pressure and unable to speak, or unable to come up with ideas and new things? And people give me their examples, and then we can begin to talk about those. Also, I'll talk to people about the strategy that they used during that exercise. Maybe some people just shifted to the chair next to them. Maybe people made a line straight for the chair in front of them. Maybe people, when they shared things in the middle, tried very hard to think of things that they knew would definitely be true for other people in the room, who would then move. So there are some of the things that you can unpick from a game, and I've often found that what people do in that moment is they can begin to be quite open about things that they may not have spoken about had you not been moving and physically interacting with each other. So there's the point of games.